Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Joaquin Phoenix. Welcome, everyone, to the At the Show podcast presented to you by Sadistic Penguin Studios. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony Chalsa Burt. How you doing, my man?
I am doing great. After our week-long layoff, I am so glad to be back. I've got about 100 movies to fire off. Luckily, we'll only be talking about 20, or we'll be here all night. Glad to see my main man in the comments. Sam is with us for this ride. We are going to be digging deep into a lot of goodness, my friend. How you been?
Good, man. Good. Work's been hectic, but it's always good to kind of take relax and talk movies on Friday. Yes.
I want to be honest with you. I am super excited. I can just keep repeating that to you.
I can tell. You've been. I know you. When we brought up the subject for this week, you really jumped at the Joaquin Phoenix films due to the Joker being released.
It's a middle of that, and it's also a middle, like, when I don't get to talk to you for a week about movies, you got to really understand. It's like Katie's got to, like, coddle me for a little while. We got to watch, like, The Lost Boys or John Carpenter, just so I could feel the connection with you with movies. So it's glad to be back, and it's glad to be sharing on with the positives, and, well, we'll see if there's any negatives in some of these films.
Yes, sir. But Tom, let's get into our first segment, and let's go into what we've been watching this week, my friend.
Let's do it.
That's a me. And also, what were you just watching?
So what you been watching, Tom?
Okay, I started off with a movie from 1997, a movie that, well, I saw in the movie theater, like a lot of the movies that I saw around this time period, and it's a movie that you like to say I throw on in the background just when I'm doing some things. I don't have to put totally into it. It actually took a couple days to finish. It's only about an hour and a half, and it is the 1997 classic Anaconda. You talk about a lineup of actors just filled from the brim to the top to the bottom. Ice Cube, Jennifer Lopez, Jon Voight, Eric Stoltz, Owen Wilson, just to name a couple. But that being said, you also want to see some pretty horrific graphics for the late 90s. Anaconda, oh yes, Anaconda's Hunt for the Blood Orchid. It does clear, as does this film. What really clears about this film personally is the performances in general, but I'm not a fan of this man at all in his real life, but I just want to be honest, his performance in this movie, where was that Academy Award?
Time to wake up.
Slow motion with the blood. We're getting started and getting ready and getting the beginnings of Halloween. Anaconda isn't really a Halloween movie, but it's starting to get me into that groove. I really enjoy this movie for the same reasons that I enjoy, like, Roadhouse. It's not super serious. Jon Voight is ultimately ridiculous. My friends always used to talk about when Owen Wilson gets squeezed to death by the snake in the water. He makes out like this cheesy groan. But Yump, I know you've seen Anaconda. What is your feelings on this one?
It's a guilty pleasure me and my brother constantly talk about. Cerrone, Jon Voight's character.
Mm-hmm.
We constantly laugh about him just because of his one-liners of Baby Bird, or
oh yeah, Baby Bird.
Yeah, his line of like anacondas have heat seekers. just stuff like that always makes me, or that face he makes when they whenever they zoom into him, he's like doing that, like with his
Oh
teeth
yeah.
out. Yeah, it's he makes the movie, to be honest with you. It's not really a
Yeah.
great movie, but he makes the movie hilarious. Also, appearances by Danny Trejo at the beginning.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I thought the animatronics, like they were pretty cool, but when they did the like the CGI
That's what it
take,
is.
that was horrible.
Like at the end or whatever, when it like wraps them up and it's like,
Yeah.
but no fault to their own. I do remember sitting in the movie theater watching this and going like, wow, this is some new technology. So it's only because sadly I've seen maybe other things to compare it to where it looks that way. But as you said,
Mhm.
as a guilty pleasure goes, we're not comparing this back to our first movie we did, Godfather, because well, that would just be a sin. We're liking it for what it is, and which is ridiculous fun. So Anaconda was my first view. My second view is a newer movie that has just been put up on this past Friday on HBO Max. It's been one that I've been really looking forward to seeing, and it is Civil War, directed by Alex Garland, who, if you are not familiar with Alex Garland, he has directed such movies that I enjoy, like Men was his last movie, but the one that I really like is Ex Machina, and Annihilation is really good too. But this one is really awesome, and what's really awesome is that only in like a 3-4 minute performance is one Jesse Plemons.
I'm just saying, just what? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you?
A real creepy performance, and honestly, I don't know if you out there have ever seen Narcos, but the gentleman that plays in this movie, Wagner Mora, he was in Narcos and played Pablo Escobar to honestly amazing performance. But this movie was really good. The only problem I probably had was the ending. But that being said, it still is worth the watch if you got HBO Max. I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but definitely worth the time if you have not.
I have not seen it, but I do find it hilarious that two totally polar opposite states join forces, which I thought was
Oh,
hilarious. Um, but I am going to watch it since it's out. It's one of those films that when I saw it come out, I was like, I'll see it probably when it comes to streaming, and that's what I'm probably going to do.
Leaning more towards Anaconda than The Godfather. So go into it like a popcorn movie. And honestly, I could nitpick a lot of things, but it was after my wife was just like, stop. I was like, wait a minute, it's just what it is. The ending is something though that definitely I know maybe you'll question. Well, I'd like to hear that when that's done. But what have you been watching?
So I have been watching the first film I was going to is a film I haven't seen in a while, and that's the Chow Yun-fat Mia Sorvino movie, The Replacement Killers, which I remember the first time I saw it, it was like Chow Yun-fat was just coming out with his American, tour. Basically, he's one of the biggest stars in Asia, and he had Mira Sorvino, who's actually the daughter of Paul Sorvino from Goodfellas and other films, shows like Law and Order, a heavyweight of actors at the time, and I really really liked it as terms of action. Corny story, but it to me it's like it still holds up to this day. It has a lot of action in it, a lot of a pretty decent cinematographic view of shootings, and the gunfights are still, they live up to this day to where they're not as bad as some movies from the 90s. It's a late 90s movie, but I really really enjoy this one. Basically, Mia Servi's a forger. I like that part too, and they show her forging documents, which if everybody knows about forging documents today, it's just the way she does it is ridiculous. But this film, it's always piqued my interest, and it always gets me into the Chow Yun-fat, type of movies. I love martial arts films, of course. I love Asian cinema. Chow Yun-fat's a heavyweight. It just goes hand in hand with me, and I decided to crack this one open. Have you seen this one, Tone?
I will again have to give a shout out to my father, because again, I will always remember that he read the review in the newspaper when it came out, and to him it sounded cool. So he said we were going to see it, and we went to the movie theaters, and honestly, I didn't know what the hell I was walking into. And I walked out, and I've probably only seen this movie 3 or 4 times, but it always plays in my head as a movie that honestly I probably should have seen like 100 because it's Chow Fat's awesome. And I also really like him in The Corruptor with Mark Wahlberg, the next action one he did after this. But he reminds me a lot of those actors that we enjoy, the Van Dammes. At this period, he could have made a lot of movies just like this movie, and I would have loved all of them because he does a really good job in this. And again, I like these movies. I like movies like this, just like I like Anaconda for what it is. And honestly, when you shout this one out, I just go back to what I just explained at the beginning because it is really actually a very awesome movie.
Yeah, if you want to look into Chow Fat's cinema, like his filmography, of course Hard Boiled comes up. We have The Killer, which we did a review on. Stuff like that comes to mind. But and then Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is kind of what exposed him more to American audiences. But he has a really decent filmography. Really, really good action star. And also I think he's won like 3 or 4 Asian American equivalents of Best Actor awards out there. So he's got some acting chops to go with it.
That is very true. Very true. And honestly, as you pointed out, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, getting to see that one on the big screen was really awesome. And his performance in that is great too.
Mm-hmm. And then secondly, I went through and I'm still currently finishing up season 2, but for some reason, I've been listening to Johnny Douglas's books. I re-listened to Mindhunter, the Audible book, and I actually flew through that, which is surprising. It was like 16 hours. I listened to it on the train after I wasn't watching your show or during work when I was doing work just to get, something in the background to listen to. And I started listening to Obsession, which is his other book that he released. Both very, very graphic books dealing around serial murder and investigations and stuff like that. In my previous, I guess my previous career, I was a psychology major. I wanted to be a profiler when I got out of college. Took a different route, but I'm always interested in true crime, stuff like that. And Johnny Douglas is I say godfather of behavioral science. He's the one that really made criminal profiling really big. The reason we have Criminal Minds, the reason we have the Science of Our Lambs was due to him and his background. The childhood murders in Atlanta. He was the FBI agent that gave the profile to catch Wayne Williams. He's his most famous probably interviews are with Ed Kemper, but Mindhunter goes into that. The book does. And then they had a series by David Fincher, who happens to be one of my favorite directors, with just an awesome staff, cast in it. And they basically go through Mindhunter the book while adding some Hollywood stuff into it. But it's just so good. It's filmed so it's a timepiece, but it's filmed so well. The cinematography is so good. The dialogue is really good. You could tell there's a lot of little intricate work that was done on this show. It ends on a cliffhanger, unfortunately. It's late season 2, and there has been rumors that it will be brought back. I know the person who plays Trench and the film Agent Trench has come out and said, Holt McCallum has come out and said that Fincher's thinking about bringing it back, but he doesn't know yet. And if he does, he will definitely sign up for it. Most people know Netflix actually released all the actors from their contracts, and Fincher said he was burned out from the show because it was just too much work and he didn't really have enough help, and they were complaining about money and all this other stuff, which to me is bullshit considering that Netflix is worth billions of dollars. But I digress. I wish HBO will pick it up, but it needs to come back. I wrote a blog about it. If you want to know what Mindhunter is, check us out. It's at the Pacific Penguin Studios. It goes into some details there. I love this show. I could talk about it forever, Tone. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but what do you think
about it? First off, my film friend, your blog was top notch. So anyone out there, please check out the blog because it's definitely going to give you a definite kickstart to want to even go back and rewatch it again, which is what I have been doing also because it is a really good show. What I'm going to bring up that I really enjoy is everyone talks a lot about the male performances in the show, which are incredible. But Anna Torv, the female lead in the show, does a great job. I don't know if you've ever seen this amazing sci-fi show called Fringe. I really enjoyed it. It was on Fox. So when she was in this, I immediately turned to Katie and was like, oh man, this is the girl from Fringe. Really liked that. Really loved the show. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Seven, as we've talked about before. One of my second favorite movies is The Game, his second movie. I mean, you just go down the list. I even quoted The Game at work today. You could pay me more to make it stop, which is when bad things happen, is what I always say. But Fincher, on top of his Game and Mindhunter, Sam's definitely right. What was Netflix thinking? You're absolutely right. Great show. The one thing I will say is quit teasing me with the is it coming back or not? I keep going online and it's saying it is. And then it's like a quote from a year ago where he says they're not. And then it's like my mind is like, it could though. You putting it in the air like this, Jump, I have a feeling you may be the gold stone to get this back.
Yeah, I would hope so. I'm actually part of a subreddit for Mindhunter. That's how much of a big fan I am for the show. But Hope McCallum, he actually came out and made that comment this year. I believe it was in January 24, where he said that Fincher's thinking about going back to it. Supposedly, they're saying Fincher, after his next film, is going to have a little bit of a break, and he could start writing again for it. I'm hoping that if Netflix doesn't do it, like HBO will pick it up because it will get ratings no matter what, and it'll make money. I just want to see them like progress through the story because there's so much stories to tell, and I just love anything Fincher. So hopefully it comes back. We'll see.
That would just be honestly amazing because I hate when television shows stop on the dime. So many awesome shows have had to come back, like even like a Deadwood and stuff, because the show just ends like on that, where it didn't give the viewers who love the show a satisfying ending. So hopefully it does.
Yeah, I mean, there was that sci-fi show that I think it had like 5 episodes, Firefly. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a movie come out because there was such a big fan uproar. I remember my aunt's friend was a huge fan of that show, and then it got canceled, and she went to go see the this film that came out. So I mean, if you cry enough for it or have a spoken voice about it, it could get made. So hopefully, the more and more people who discover it and want more of it, Fincher will bring it back.
Yeah, definitely. I would be 100% just like you. Let's bring it back.
Yes, sir. But that's what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched over at the Twitter or X or whatever Elon decides to call it next week. You can let us know at Facebook at Statistic Penguin Studios or at our Twitter handles at Lil Yumper or the Hookup on Music or the Sugar Baggy. Tone, those are some good films, man. Anaconda. When I saw that, I was very excited to talk that film.
You're somebody who I would love to just bring back to me in the theater, sitting next to me with my other friend, and we're just laughing at this in a great way, and just where it's come in his history, and well, sadly, who John Voight is, which luckily doesn't mar his performance, but again, does, because actually, Katie laughed the other day. They had that trailer for the new Francis Ford Coppola movie on the TV, and he's in that. Which, I don't know about that, but again, John Voight, Anaconda, Academy Award, robbed.
It's best role, man. No.
No.
Either that or Coach.
Well, that's a great role.
Bud in Varsity Blues.
I don't want your life.
Yeah. Eat my boys.
Dude, the way he goes nuts at the end, and they're all just like, holy moly.
Yeah, he starts choking him. All right, we're getting off a tangent here, but
all right.
my man, we've had, unfortunately, in the film world, when we have legends, we have one of them, unfortunately pass when they get older. But we have somebody who did live a long and very successful career, and also an inspirational career in James Earl Jones, who passed away on September 9th. I believe he was 93 years old, born January 17th, 1931. And he passed September 9th, 2024. James Earl Jones, of course, was one of the best voice actors he was Morgan Freeman before Morgan Freeman, I would say, even though they aren't too far off in age. But his voice is always something that always like resonates with me whenever I think of Star Wars. You could think of any Disney movie as far as The Lion King. Even if you're a baseball fan, you can think of Field of Dreams, baseball. His whole speech there If you want to go horrible films, The Exorcist 2. He's the tribal chief in that film. Uh, and if you want to go Broadway, Fences, the film that Denzel got nominated for an Oscar. James Earl Jones was actually in that lead role on Broadway for a long time. An awesome dude. I loved him in The Big Bang Theory when he played himself, and as a very happy to meet fans. And from what I heard, he was like one of the most nicest people to meet. Just unfortunate for him to pass. Tone. Any memories of James Earl Jones?
Oh, I mean, a couple. One that I'll always remember that we would laugh about was his amazing turn in Conan the Barbarian. His amazing hair in that movie, we would just be like, that's amazing. And honestly, when he passed, that's the first thing I thought of for some unknown reason. But, I mean, obviously Star Wars, obviously, when you brought his lows in The Exorcist 2, he's even in a movie that gets, no one really watches it because, it's a little wrong. It's called Soul Man. Have you ever heard of this
Oh
movie?
my God, yes.
He is in that movie as a professor, and honestly, his role is really ridiculous because he's like, this is whole ridiculous what he's involved in the movie. But anything he does and he is in, honestly, it comes to life. I mean, and I know, Coming to America, he's not at all the top comedy, but he's just funny being in that movie. I mean, he's just funny playing the dad and coming into the room. And honestly, now that we're talking, that might be my first introduction to him. I mean, James Earl Jones is a legend, man. I mean, we could have done a whole 17 shows on him because of just his breakdown. I'm looking at here, and I didn't even realize until we started that he was in Doctor Strangelove in 1964, which is like, whoa, this guy is in some really good work.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, for Star Wars fans, if they're afraid that his voice is going to go away from the Darth Vader character, I read recently that before he passed, he actually signed a contract with Disney to use his voice digitally and AI. So they had him record a bunch of lines as Darth Vader before he passed. This is just something they had agreed on. I'm guessing because they knew he was getting older. He recorded a bunch of lines, and then he actually let them use his voice, and they're training an AI model to actually have that used in the future. And hopefully his family is compensated for his future works of them using his voice. But that iconic voice of Darth Vader is not going to go away due to him passing. I think that's kind of cool as long as he was cool with it, because it helps his legacy, keep going. And you can't have a Darth Vader without that, iconic voice of James Earl Jones. And even when I saw the newer shows that came out on Disney Plus, when you saw Vader and you heard him talk, it was like, oh man, it's like it brought you back. Just an awesome, awesome actor. Very sad he passed.
Real quick before we move on, a couple things that I think about. I think about he's really great in like A Clear and Present Danger, those Clancy books. There's this movie, because for some reason I always bring myself to that late 90s period, and when I was looking through his filmography, he does this movie with Robert Duvall. It's called A Family Thing, where they like get mistaken as like they think they're brothers, like they had the same mom or something. But really great performances. I mean, you could put him in something really, 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 like as you stated, like Star Wars, or you can go all the way down and he can be in something like, whether you like it or not, his performance in Sandlot and Field of Dreams, they do add to those movies. Those aren't my favorite baseball movies. They're good for what they are. But again, he always brings it in his performances, man.
Yeah, and don't forget his performances in Meteor Man.
Yes.
In one of the greatest action films, Best of the Best.
I'll real quick before we move on, not off topic, because you brought up Meteor Man. We'll remember going to Great America on prom, and me and my buddy thought we saw Robert Townsend lookalike, so we just got like a picture. Like we walked, but he was behind us just so we can get him in the picture. Meteor Man's a classic, man, and so is James Earl Jones.
Yes, great actor, and gone. Even though he was here for a long time, still gone way too soon.
Yeah.
So that's our little tribute to James Earl Jones. Tone, I know this has been a week actually for TV shows coming back and new TV shows. I know Tulsa King was released on Sunday. I actually watched that episode, which I thought was pretty crazy. But I know you saw the new HBO show, The Penguin came out.
Yes.
So let's get your initial thoughts, my man.
Honestly, I know you like mob related stuff. This, and and we've talked before, I'm not the biggest comic book man. And Katie watched this with me, and she's definitely further away from any of those things than this, and she loved this show. I really, really, really liked this show. I like Colin Farrell's performance. I like the way it looks. There's some Easter eggs from the movie. I mean, man, I love Clancy Brown. He shows up in it. But like the reality of the show is it's an extension of the film that just happened, and this is going to lead into the Batman 2, which was just announced. He's going to be a part of that. And from I'm also hearing is the movie's going to take place within the world of snow, which, well, who's in the snow is the Penguin, so I can imagine his character is going to be maybe bigger in that movie. But as far as performances go, him having to put on the prosthetics for this role and just this first, there's going to be 8 episodes. So the initial reaction for me is that, and from reading online today, it sounds like it's going to be HBO's biggest hit of the year, maybe bigger than, House of Dragon. Definitely a great premiere. I mean, music, I'm a music man. There are excellent musical interludes in this show. There are excellent performances. There's an actress in the show. Her name is Kristen Milotti. After this came out, she's, besides Colin being talked about, is a very, very, very good in her role. And in this show, she plays again a character that I'm not familiar with, the Hangman, Sophia Falcone, which I guess is the daughter of the John Turturro Falcone, who was in the movie. But what's cool is in this show, I know you're familiar with the actor Mark Strong. He's been in things like Kick-Ass, which we've talked about. He was the bad guy. He's going to play Falcone in this. I don't know if in flashbacks or whatnot, because it didn't. Did Turturro pass away? It's been a while since I've seen that.
No, he Batman.
But in this show, Mark Strong's going to play Falcone. But a real good thing, and honestly, I think you'd like it. So that is my nice. He's a vegan. Nice.
Yeah, he's also in the Kingsman. Merlin. He's Kingsman. Merlin.
Yeah, he's great.
Corey's asking, Joaquin's a vegan. Why aren't you?
We are. You never know. You don't know what we are.
Yes, true. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this. I will have that. Probably gonna watch it this weekend to get the first episode knocked out. I did watch Tulsa King. It wasn't some interesting, transpirings in it. I love the fact that Stallone is back playing a mobster. Not the greatest show, I would say, when it first came out, but it was entertaining, and that's it's what we watch stuff for entertainment. I do love that they brought the old cast back. Now they have the whole New York mob thing, and now they have an issue with Utah. Oklahoma, where they have a guy that came out and is now talking about going after Stallone in the show. So everything is still building up. So I'm looking forward to that. I do kind of like the fact that they are kind of spacing out these episodes. I, for one, do like the whole binge thing, but I do like the anticipation of having to wait each week to watch the new episode. Which is kind of cool because it reminds me of like regular TV when we were younger.
Yeah, I mean, I have caught a couple. I'm still a sucker for loving to watch something live, So like they've been replaying that first season on CBS. So like sometimes it's on Sunday nights. So like when we're eating dinner, if I'm just after and it comes on at 7. I've watched some of it and it plays like the way I think it would be a pretty good, Stallone late career show that you're going to be entertained with. I mean, definitely.
Yeah. So that's what we want to get into for news and rumors. I know the Penguin is a big deal. Uh, can't wait to hear what you say about it next week, man. See how it's progressing, and I'll give an update on Tulsa King. So we'll be watching two new shows along with everything else we're doing. So
Very awesome. Can't wait.
yes, sir. But so let's get into our main event here. Let's go into what the show is basically based around. We are in old format coming back, and with Joker, the second Joker coming out, that is a musical, which I thought was pretty brave of a way to basically take a franchise that wasn't a musical and turn it into a musical. But Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix, you know, Todd Phillips decided to go a different route, and people are saying I'm hearing a lot of good reviews for it. I'll go see it. But it's just a different way of looking at things. What do you think about the whole franchise kind of like becoming a musical for a second one?
Me liking music. I've heard a lot of movies be talked about like this, like it's a musical. Like I'll need to see it first. Like if there's like 4 or 5 dreamy dreamscapes with a song, that's one thing. But if it's a 2-hour movie and an hour and 15 minutes of singing, that's a musical to me. So I'll hold off my reservations. I don't know if they would be able to pull off a all musical Joker and then it be successful, because you need that first. Well, we're going to get to it in a little while.
Yeah, and I think like musicals can work, but when off the top of my head, any films I think that were successful musicals were also on Broadway as musicals, like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think of like films with music in it that have like maybe Dick Tracy with Madonna. Yeah, but in this whole term format, it's interesting.
Maybe because they saw that scene, which we're going to get to later on the stairs, where he's dancing to the music.
Yeah.
They decide, well, you know what? We're going to. I always remember real quick when bands release like one acoustic song on an album and it's a huge success. So then the next album has 6 acoustic songs.
Yeah.
Like, we jump it. And maybe that's what Todd Phillips is doing. He's made enough good movies. Hopefully that's not the case, but we'll see.
Yes, sir. But it all goes back to Joaquin Phoenix, who was the brother of River Phoenix, who most people might know from Young Indiana Jones, in the Indiana Jones 3, or as from Stand By Me as Chris Chambers. He's probably his 2 biggest roles. Another person lost way too soon. He passed away in the early 90s, and Joaquin was his younger brother, who was also in films before that. But he's become one of his something fell behind me, but I don't know what it was. He's become one of his one of the premier actors, even though he stepped away from acting, in the 2000s, like 2010s, and came back and still hit the floor running and eventually won an Academy Award. So with this film coming out, Tone, it was a great idea to go into his career.
There's just a lot to it. We're only going to be doing 10 movies here today, but he's a very well-rounded actor. He reminds me of those bands that, again, have multiple sounds on one album. He can do a lot of different things, which I think is what we're going to try to showcase here tonight for you guys.
Yeah, so these are our 10 favorite Joaquin Phoenix films. They're not ranked in a particular order as from best to worst, but we are going to go through them now. They are our favorites, so let us know your favorites so you don't agree, or we missed out some of them. That's the whole fun of having the film discussion. But Tone, are you ready to get into our first film?
Let's do it.
Fine, but everybody's got their limit. Look, I've been here 6 fucking years trying to get my music together, so I start clerking part-time where I work, to make ends meet. And boom, a couple of years go by and here I am. I'm just saying, before you know it, you're in it, deep in it.
Don't worry about me. But thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Pops, you dance with the devil don't change. Devil changes you.
Some of your lyrics?
That's cute.
8mm, released in 1999. Joaquin Phoenix plays the role of Max California. The film was directed by Joel Schumacher, who also directed Phantom of the Opera, Phone Booth, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, The Client, Flatliners, and Tony's favorite, Lost Boys. The film stars Nicolas Cage, Peter Stormare, Catherine Kenner, James Gandolfini, which is his birthday this week. Shout out to Skip, and Anthony Heald. The film had a box office of $96 million on a $40 million budget. This film is not for the faint of heart. It's a very, very hard watch. I actually rewatched this today in the morning because I remember seeing it and I hadn't seen it in a little bit. I wanted to get refreshed on it. And it's a tough watch, but it is a very, very well done film. It makes you feel a lot of emotions. So it basically, pulls on a lot of strings about what's going on in the underground world of pornography. It's a film that was, very, very hard to pitch. I know the person who's a studio executive did not like that Amy Pascal, the executive, took this film, and she got a lot of heat for greenlighting it. But it is done very, very well by Schumacher. He has said that before he passed, that this is one of the best films he's done. Nicolas Cage shows his acting chops in here. This is prime Nicolas Cage. He doesn't play, any goofy character. He plays a straight man investigator who deals with a hard subject. I thought Catherine Kenner did a very good job as his wife. And Max California, the character that Joaquin Phoenix plays, is one of my favorite characters that he plays because, for one, it's out of the box. It has some humor with it. When he first meets him, he's working in a porn shop, and he asks him if he wants a vibrating vagina to try to sell him. But it turns out that he's just a person that tried to make it big with a band. He ended up in this world where he's not happy what he's doing. He's doing it to make ends meet as far as working at a store, but he met a lot of weird people, and he's actually a big, big help to Nicolas Cage's character in finding, this girl that's in this film that was murdered. And I really liked his character. You kind of think when they kind of split up towards the end of the film, and he tells him, like, I'll reach out to you and I'll bring you back. You kind of think, like, well, maybe this could be his opening to get out and do something different. Eventually we see what happens to him. But yeah, it's he does a great role of keeping stuff serious and also showing that dark world of, unfortunately, that's real with snuff films. But very, very, darkly shot, and again, a subject matter that isn't really make a lot of people comfortable talking about. But it's become a cult classic, and it's surprising that Fincher was actually the first person that they wanted to direct this film, and they went with Schumacher. But yeah, I love Phoenix in this film. What about you, Tom?
To start breaking some stuff down here, number one, great pick. Honestly, out of all the movies we're doing tonight, this one, just by coincidence, was the most recent Yacht Queen movie I've watched since. I give this movie a chance every couple of years. I want this movie to be up there as 7. I just can never get it up there, but I keep watching it because I like all the actors in it. If I was to call the same friend that I was talking about Anaconda and brought up this movie, he'd start making the jokes about Machine. We used to make this joke going around the guy in the movie that they talk about named Machine, just because it sounded so ridiculous as middle school, high school students hearing about this. But going through some of what what was going on in the background, Joel Schumacher stated that this was one of the most dangerous scripts that Sony has ever bought, and couldn't find a director for it for a while, which I found to be really interesting.
Yeah, and looking at people who are offered roles for this film, Bruce Willis as the lead. I can't see Bruce Willis doing this. Mark Wahlberg as Max California. No, I'm glad Joaquin took it over and was considered for it. You had William Friedkin as director that was offered. Paul Verhoeven was offered it, and I mean, he does have a style of going outside the box. But Schumacher, like, people give Schumacher a lot of crap because of Batman's movies, but you don't understand. Like, Schumacher his style of film is so good. I love Flatliners, Lost Boys, that comedy horror thing, and then you have Flatliners, and you have The Client, a film that never gets really talked about.
That movie's great. Client's great.
And then Phone Booth, like those films.
Good movie. Back to Colin Farrell.
Yeah, just films that he did that. People are like, oh wait, he did that. Like he's a very very talented director and doesn't get enough credit because of those mainstream films that kind of like take away from him. But I'm so happy he did this film and he made it into a cult classic. Again, it's a film that I watched it today. I probably won't watch for years to come. But in honor of Joaquin Phoenix, I thought his acting was very very well done. He also plays like the oddball character in the film. If you're for the faint of heart and you want to watch a difficult film, definitely check this one out. It's brutal, man.
It's brutal. And you know what else is really awesome about the movie is the film's score, which was done by Michael Dana. Which honestly, if you're watching this movie, I mean, it digs into your skin. Also on the soundtrack, which I thought was pretty cool, was Apex Twin. I always want to call them Aphex. They do a song on there called "Come to Daddy," which ironically for this movie sounds like something for the movie. But again, I like the sounds that are going on in the background of this movie, which we've talked about in 7 before. So honestly, it's a treat. And honestly, you watching this in the morning, you should get a huge something, because it is not for the faint of heart.
No, I remember watching it. Well, I was watching today. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I do love Nicolas Cage's reactions to stuff that's going on because it's how any normal person would react to it.
And you brought up about Catherine Keener too, which I thought was an excellent point, because I think a 4-year-old virgin. So then I'm seeing her in this and she's playing like that concerned wife. I always like the movies. It's back to like Donnie Brasco, where like he's like getting deeper and like he doesn't really care. Like, can you imagine? Like, I can't, like, Katie, I'm sorry, I'm just so deep in this. You gotta leave me alone. And it's just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. But
Yeah.
great movie, great movie.
Thanks, my man.
No
But let's get to your film.
Let's do it.
I never really gave a rat's ass about the weather until I got to know Miss Amato. Now, I take it very serious. If it rains, or there's lightning or thunder, or if it snows, I have to jack off. Oh, right. Sorry.
1995's To Die For. Joaquin played the role of Jimmy Emmett. The film was directed by Gus Van Sant, who you might know from other films such as Good Will Hunting, Finding Forrester, Vince Vaughn's classic Psycho, Milk, and he also directed a couple Red Hot Chili Pepper videos, Desperation Smile and Under the Bridge. The film stars Nicole Kidman, Matt Dillon, Ilana Douglas, Casey Affleck, and Dan Hedaya. The box office for this film was $27 million on a budget of 20. Tone, tell me why you picked this one.
Brings me back to when we first got to get dropped off at the movie theater to see movies. And in 95, I was 13, and this was like one of the first ones I remember. I also, whenever I think of Nicole Kidman in those commercials, I think of her in this movie. The music also in this movie is great. I just think of this scene a lot when I think of this movie. There's a lot of cool, and that's why Gus Van Sant is a great director, juxtapositions between like, oh, never in a movie would you see a girl walking, but then fast punk is playing, and it's just like, it's another movie that's kind of like in a different way of 8mm, where you kind of start getting involved in something and it just keeps going worse and worse and worse, and great performances by everybody involved. You brought up again, the director, Gus Van Sant being involved is huge. Some of the things looking in the background, Casey Affleck was brought director Gus Van Sant a screenplay that his brother happened to be working on, which was a little movie you mentioned called Good Will Hunting, which I thought was awesome, because I like directors that go from movies like To Die For to like something like a Good Will Hunting. It shows your range. I like this movie for those type of things.
Yeah, it's a This film, I remember watching it this week, and it reminded me, first of all, the beginning of it reminded me a lot of Beetlejuice, the music that was played. Um, it's a film that kind of reminds me of like the 1980s Heathers.
Mhm,
It's a
mhm.
black comedy. I think actually this one's a little is better in terms of the comedy factor because Heathers was funny, but this one
Sure.
is openly showing you it's funny. Goes around a subject that a lady killing her husband. But it's like it's shot in like interview style, which I always like. You have a young Joaquin Phoenix as the person that ends up doing the gig, the job. But you have Matt Dillon, who I love. It's just a great ensemble of actors and actresses. Dan Hedaya, who I think is hilarious. In most of his roles, he's another actor that doesn't really have lead roles, but he's that character actor that when you see him, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. And I was reading for research for this that Meg Ryan was offered $5 million to do this role, and
Wow.
she turned it down. And Nicole Kidman agreed to do it for 2 million. And people are saying this is one of her best performances of her career, which I thought was pretty crazy considering Nicole Kidman has a long, long history of acting. But I really enjoyed this film for what it was. Uh, and if you're really into comedy, kind of a comedy murder, this is kind of it. With more, it has a serious tone to it, but it also has those funny little moments in it. And like you said, Gus Van Sant is a very, very good director. He can pull all emotions from you, and I thought it was shot beautifully, and everything just flowed so well.
Great performances by like Kurtwood Smith as as Nicole Kidman's father in the movie. Great performance. I really like Alina Douglas. I'll always remember, of course, in Cape Fear when she unfortunately got her face bitten by Mr. Max Cady. But in this movie, playing Matt Dillon's sister, who knows right off the bat what's her name is about as shady could come, is a really another great performance. But again, Yacht Queen, in a movie that in 1995, I mean, are you really thinking that we're gonna get later to some movies that he could really be a part of? I don't know if I did back then. I know maybe he could be cool, but we did know his brother had the same talents that could be those things. So it's in the bloodline. We know that he's got really good chops at acting. So this was a good early indication of that.
Yes, definitely. Really showcasing those talents. Yeah, when you mentioned his sister, it makes me think of like the opening scene when she talks about Nicole Kidman. She's like, "Yeah, four-letter word that starts with a C," and everybody you assume it's like CUNT, and it's like no, cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's why I was like, it cracks me up. Especially when she goes through Nicole Kidman's going through describing them, and she's like, "Oh yeah, his sister Graceful," and they show her falling down at the ice skating ring. But yeah, it's a
I mean,
good
that
one.
whole scene with the eyes, yeah, that is good.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this one, check it out. It's actually free on Prime, I believe. You can get it for free on Prime. 8 millimeter is actually free on Hulu if you have it. So there's two spots you can check those two films out. But Tone, good pick. I like this film. It's a film that doesn't get talked about a lot either.
No,
Another cult classic.
we're always trying to mirror the lines of my movies, and then a couple maybe that are a little bit under the ground that you can go back and check out. So real cool. What do we got up next, my man?
Cool. Get into it.
It's not.
But it wasn't working.
Morgan, this crop stuff is about a bunch of nerds who never had a girlfriend in their lives. They're like 30 and they work up little codes together and they analyze Greek mythology and make up secret societies where other guys who never had girlfriends before can join in. They do stupid crap like this to feel special. It's a scam. Nerds were doing it 25 years ago. New nerds are doing it again.
2002 Signs. Joaquin Phoenix played the role of Meryl Hess. This film was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who also did The Sixth Sense, Lady in the Water, The Village, The Last Airbender, Unbreakable, The Visit, Glass, and Split. The film stars Mel Gibson, Abigail Breslin, Rory Culkin, and Cherry Jones. It had a box office of $400 million and a $72 million budget. I remember when this film first came out. This is M. Night Shyamalan living off his high, time as a director, and he went through his lows, and he's kind of going on his high again. But Sixth Sense had come out, Unbreakable had come out, and then Signs had came out. And I love the premise of this film in terms of crop circles, where they come from. Although it does have a religious background to it, some people say it's a turnoff. To me, it's just part of the story, and I know what he was going for. But Mel Gibson, in one of his roles that is not as an action man, he's the lead, but he's not the masculine. He's a widowed preacher who lost his wife and lost his faith, and he has a brother who is played by Joaquin Phoenix, who doesn't know what he wants to do in his life. He's going to look at military stuff. He's a failed baseball player who probably had talent to make the majors, but he couldn't stop swinging at everything. And I love that scene when he talks about how it just felt wrong not to swing at pitches, even though he has more strikeouts than any two players combined in the minor leagues. But he could hit the ball over 500 feet. The kids have big roles as Rory Culkin, as the weird kid who's into the aliens, and the daughter who has a water problem. The ending was kind of corny, I'm not gonna lie, but I did like, the overall direction of this film. And I love that, Joaquin Phoenix kind of played kind of the comical uncle in this when he comes home and sees them all with the little hats on, that line about nerds in the basement with their girlfriends, and then, when they hear the clicking noise and he's like tells them, no, wait, it was there, put it there. Like he starts buying into it. Or when he's watching the film in Brazil and he's like, muévete, children. And then you see the alien, he's like, oh my God. Stuff like that. Like I thought he was really, really good in this film. Gives him another it's an oddball character, a weird character, even though all the characters are kind of weird in their own way in this film. And he kind of does a great job in it. What about you, Tom?
Agree with everything you said. Definitely, the performances by Mel are, I thought was, when I saw it in the theater, was incredible. I thought the movie was incredible the first time. Sam's point right there about Scary Movie 3. Sometimes I think of too many jokes from that movie sometimes. But I don't want to go into that right now because there's just too many hilarity, and this is kind of more of a serious movie. But the overall performance by Joaquin in this, as you stated, the idea of the failed baseball player uncle who is living with them, as you stated, the characters are all a little odd. Maybe it's because I just don't know any of them like that, who like live on a farm like that, or something. I don't know. But just what Shyamalan was doing with like the alien in the movie, I always enjoyed. He didn't need to show it a whole lot to get the point across of what he was trying to do. At the time of seeing this movie, I used to think he was like, oh man, this guy's going to be the next Hitchcock. He has rose to the occasion at times, and at other times he has failed. But that being said, who doesn't fail? Sometimes has failed a couple more than others, but he's back on track, everybody. He's back on track. I haven't seen Trap yet, but I've heard it's not the worst. So it's not, honestly, I saw Lady in the Water in the theater, and well, that's a bad movie. But back to being said, this movie is a really great, just really great cinema. And it's interesting because, Mel Gibson said when he read the script the first time, couldn't put it down. Which it's interesting to think if he's ever said that about anything else, because that's, strong words for a script. And, honestly, I bet Mel would die for a film like this now in his career. So
Mad Max.
Yeah. or a newer movie, I think he's doing Passion of the Christ too. I don't know how that's going to turn out. It might be like Joaquin's face here on the screen, but we won't know. But great pick though. A great movie.
Yeah, and great points about the aliens, how he didn't really have to show them, and which is, I thought, built the suspense. Like I love Caitlin's comment here, the part where Joaquin yells at the kids to move, and then the creature comes, still haunts me to this day at 32. It did as well as a kid, and that's true. Like that part is creepy. Reading into this, they wanted to have the aliens have a camouflaging ability like the Predator. But when M. Night Shyamalan actually saw the shots and test, he thought it was too effects heavy, and he's like, "Nah, we'll stick with what I'm doing." Which I'm glad he did.
Do you think when they asked the director, he was like, "Anytime"? Will you do it? Anytime.
Maybe.
Maybe.
They just needed Billy to come out and fight one of the aliens.
There we go.
Disappear out of nowhere.
Just a side character, kind of like Scatman Crothers in Shining, but it's Billy, and he's like on another farm. I love it.
Yeah. But this film still holds up to this day. I thought it's a very, very good story. Also deals with crop circles who we really don't know why they're done. Some people say they're hoaxes. Some people don't believe they're real. I'm not gonna get into that, but I thought it was a good story with great cast, and it's one of the few films that people say, Mel Gibson did a really, really great job, and I can kind of relate to his character because everybody knows he's psycho off the set.
Well, it's like, I mean, I think you could really say you could put this movie like a stake in the sand and say this and anything before this, you really maybe not run into too many bad stinkers. I mean, honestly, movies that I actually have never seen, like The Man Without a Face. I mean, this movie was huge when it came out. Like for women, they were like, "Oh my God, he's so romantic." Mel Gibson, he's the man of the, you know what I mean? So like he's had different successes in different genres. You mentioned Mad Max. You could say honestly, he's great. I watched this one with Kurt Russell called Tequila Sunrise. They're like really awesome with Michelle Pfeiffer, but again, great movie that you picked here.
Yeah. Also, Lethal Weapon, and then you got the Patriot, man.
Oh, the Patriot. You're not my son. You're my son. I forgot that whole line, but it's great.
Yeah. You're not a soldier. You're my son.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Or Ransom. I think you think about Ransom. Give me back my son.
That's Give Me Back My Son. But just really, really great performances. But sadly, he's not putting out as much good work.
No. Still looking forward to that Passion of the Christ too. But let's get into your film, my man.
All right, let's do it.
What do we do? I don't know. This is a new situation for me. But I guess the right thing to do would be to bring it ashore. No, wait. Wait a goddamn minute. Now, don't you think we should report it first? I mean, that's standard procedure. Well, yeah, but we're a long way from a phone, man. Well, I don't think anybody would want us touching her. Her. Evidence. Her? Her? No, I'm not even sure that Anthony's a woman.
1998's Clay Pigeons, and he plays the role of Clay. The film was directed by David Dobkin, who also directed The Judge, Shanghai Nights, Fred Claus, and Wedding Crashers. The film stars Vince Vaughn, Janine Garofalo, Gregory Sporletter, Scott Wilson, and Georgina Cates. The film had a budget of $8 million and made a box office of $1.7 million. Tone, this film is hilarious. I know why you picked this one, but give us a little more detail on why.
Again, a time period where I'm just like, I'm at the video store and I'm throwing darts. I'm looking for a classic. I'm looking for something that's going to give me the, I shouldn't really be watching this in 19, I'm not 18 yet, but like, it's kind of hardcore. There's a scene in the movie where unfortunately Clay, aka Joaquin Phoenix, is making love to a woman, and sadly she takes like a bullet, like stuff like that. Like just really, there's darkness to it. I really also enjoy Vince Vaughn's performance because again, he is really off kilter in this. And all around just a different type of affair. Okay. Joaquin Phoenix, though, he was first apprehensive about taking this role of Clay because he feared that the scripts combined the humor and violence wouldn't translate well on the screen. But he changed his mind after meeting David Dobkin, who which is hilarious, loved The Judge, and I love The Judge. And honestly, until you just said that there, I didn't look up the director's filmography. So I'm saying to myself, he can do The Judge, which is awesome, and then he could do something that's so out there like this. That's why I like Clay Pigeons. Is because honestly, too, I've always been a king of like, what movie have you seen? Clay Pigeons. What's that? And then you got to explain the movie. So this is one of those type of movies.
Yeah, I remember this film not for like I didn't see a trailer for it on television.
No.
In terms of like at the theater, but I remember it was on the Movie Channel, which was a cable channel back in the day. They used to play movies. It was There was a movie channel, Showtime, and HBO. There was 3 channels that played movies, and when you had a little box, remember the box? Some people had a hot box. We had the
Me
hot box.
too. Yeah, we had them.
But I remember it was one of these films that, because Janine Garofalo plays an FBI agent in this film, and it was a film that always came up for previews, like Clay Pigeons with Janine Garofalo and Joaquin Phoenix. And I always remember her because she said some funny dialogue in the film. I remember like her dialogue in the film, and then you see Vince Vaughn in the cowboy hat. And you're like, what is this? And I remember watching it. I'm like, wow, this movie is like completely out there. Another black comedy.
Really black.
Yeah,
the first time you see Vince Vaughn, okay, in the movie, his name is Lester. He's like, his joke is like Lester as in Mo Lester, and they're like the whole movie, he's like, but he's very odd in this movie too. Which you mentioned earlier, Gus Van Sant's Psycho. This is like almost like he wandered off of this set right onto the Psycho set, but the Psycho thing didn't work, but this one did work, something along those lines.
Yeah, he was definitely carrying over his Psycho performance there, but I think he did a better job in this film than he did in Psycho.
Oh yeah,
my personal opinion. But
there
yeah,
was a chili pepper though in Psycho though. Flea. I'm just kidding.
Might have been a flea on him. But this, this film with Joaquin Phoenix, he kind of plays a straight man, but also he's like in these comedic situations. Like the scene I just played is when they're fishing and they find a body in the water, and like Lester's comments is like, he's like, I don't know, that her, it's a body. He's like, her, I don't know, that's like a woman. And Lester's the one that killed these people, and they end up draining this lake and finding all these bodies. But the best part is when he's like, oh yeah, you can report. I want to be late for work, is what he tells them, which is like so out there. Like it's just, and I don't know. It's just such a crazy movie, but it's so well cast, and like the roles are so well done that it should get more recognition.
Joaquin's like plays he's very apprehensive in this movie. So like he plays the very good, which is hilarious because this is the movie he did right before 8mm. So you're saying like the way he acts in 8mm, and then you're seeing him in this, he's like just trying to just live his life, and he just is involved in this stuff. And again, great performances by Georgina Cates, who's in this movie. A big fan I am of Mr. Scott Wilson. He's a great actor and a lot of other things who shows up in this movie, but great performance by Joaquin Phoenix. And again, as you said, both this and like To Die For. There was one more that we're not going to talk about tonight, but because I didn't want to get into the whole Oliver Stone thing, but he does a really great performance in U-Turn with Sean Penn, another weird, but I love weird performances by any actor, and Joaquin can do some really good weird performances. Not that this one was one, but like 8mm, To Die For. But great. I like the black comedy aspect of this.
Yeah, two good picks so far, Tone. I love Clay Pigeons. I saw it. Like when I saw it, I started laughing because I
this was the first time that we went back to the old format that I did a lot of racing. No, yes, no, I like this one, but we'll get to more of that later.
Yeah, let's go on to our next one, my friend.
But the Emperor Claudius knew that they were up to something. He knew they were busy little bees. And one night he sat down with one of them. And he looked at her. And he said, "Tell me what you've been doing, busy little bee."
2000's Gladiator. He played the role as Emperor Commodus. The film was directed by Ridley Scott, who also did films such as Alien, Blade Runner, the Prometheus series, American Gangster, Kingdom of Heaven, Hannibal, G.I. Jane, Black Rain, and Legend. The film stars Russell Crowe, Oliver Reed, Richard Harris, Derek Jacobi, Connie Nielsen, Djimon Hounsou, I always mess up his name, and Tommy Flanagan. The film had a budget of $103 million and made $465 million at the box office. This film is the film I think that put Joaquin Phoenix mainstream. This film had a lot of Oscar buzz around it. and he played the role of Emperor Commodus, who was this crazy son of a bitch who was attracted to his sister, killed his father. Was a real person, although some of the stuff was taken liberties of. But he was actually a real emperor who did fight in the gladiators several times. Actually, he wasn't killed there. But you know, I think Joaquin shows his real acting chops in here, playing an evil, sadistic, emperor who is just trying to get rid of the people who his father loved because he didn't feel he was loved by his father, and he's attracted to his sister, which is really, really strange. I do love the dialogue of the busy bees because he has his nephew on his lap and they're reading a book, and while he's looking at his sisters, telling her because she knows they're planning something against him. It's really, really menacing. And he's one of those people that you just want to like punch in the face. Another great part is when he does a thumbs down, when he does this, and then people are cheering for him and booing him, which I thought was hilarious. Oliver Reed in his last performance before he went out to go do a bender and got drunk. That's a funny story too. He to go off a little bit off subject, said he was going to quit drinking. Oliver Reed, who's one of the great actors, known to be an alcoholic, he said he was going to quit drinking cold turkey, but he wanted to do one last bender, and that last bender killed him. But it kind of changed the story because he was actually supposed to survive as a character, and they ended up using CGI and killing him off, which cost a lot of money. But one of the things that sticks out to me, besides the performance by Joaquin, is I really love the score of this film. Hans Zimmer did this film. I remember we did this film for marching band in high school.
Ooh, cool.
The Barbarian Horde was a very, very big percussion thing. I really like it. I still listen to this actually. I like classical music. This and The Last Samurai from Hans Zimmer are like my two favorite scores he's done. But I love everything about this score. I love the Barbarian Horde. I love the way the film is shot that way. Although I say 1992 Gladiator is better.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Which,
do think
honestly, that actually, it could be good is that we could break that down when Gladiator 2 comes out. Not this Gladiator, we'll break down the other Gladiator.
We could do that.
Dude, that could be kind of a genius idea.
With James Marshall.
Yeah.
Out in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
But I this film is iconic. Russell Crowe, it kind of put him on the map as well in terms of things. Reading about this, you find out that he was not the nicest person to work with. He said that these lines are horrible and he's going to make them work because he's the greatest actor in the world. It's a direct quote from Russell Crowe. But I think Joaquin Phoenix steals the show along with the score. I like this film. I don't love it, but I like it. But Joaquin's one of the main reasons I like it. What about you, Tom?
3 bullet points for me of the show is I remember this was the very first time I was in a movie theater and the fire alarm went off and they escorted us out after it was literally 6 minutes into this movie. And it was like a Friday night too. And it was like a 10 o'clock show and they escorted us out into the lobby and then they gave us all free tickets and said we could come back again. And honestly, we went back again. And when we went back again, it was too crowded. And then I just said, you know what? Fuck this movie. It's like 3 hours long. I don't want to sit here with this. So but honestly, when DVDs came out, was like one of the first DVDs that I had. Joaquin Phoenix's performance is really why I would watch this movie repeatedly. I do like Russell Crowe in the movie and I like other aspects. I do think that it's not a movie. I had a friend in college a roommate actually, and a friend who he would watch this movie every day, fall asleep to it. It would be on in the background, but the music's good. But it's a good movie. But Joaquin is great. The scene that you did with the bees is great. There's a scene earlier in the movie that's one of my favorites, as he's talking to his father, and he states, which I've made a joke and repeated lots of times, when he's like, "I have lots of other virtues, maybe not on the battlefield, but there are other kind of virtues, like," and he starts going through, and the dad's just like staring at him. He goes, "But none of my virtues were on your list." and he gets really low, and his voice is just great. And like Richard Harris is just like, man, my son's a loser, and that's what I like about him. He's scuzz. He's a loser. He's at the bottom, but he's at the top as far as ranking goes. So that's, I guess, what matters. And he does a good job at just doing all of that. The thumb up if you're watching on on the screen as you described. He does really, really awesome at the conveyance of what he's doing as the character. A lot of people put this movie up as really one of the greats of these type of movies. Do you like Braveheart more than you like this movie?
I think Braveheart's better done.
How about Last of the Mohicans?
I like the movie, yes. Totally different from the book. The book is horrible.
Okay.
But I do like the movie a lot. I think this movie is good in certain aspects. When it's funny you say people like kind of put this movie as the greats. Two people that didn't say so were Kirk Douglas, who saw the film and he liked it, but he said it was nowhere near as noble as Spartacus. And then Roger Ebert described Gladiator as looking muddy, fuzzy, and indistinct, and criticized the writing for its bitter, morose, and dull characters from the Sun-Times. Good old Roger Ebert just shitting all over Gladiator. I think the film was good. I do remember all the parodies that have come from this. Also, when you said your friend would watch it waking up and going to sleep to it, it reminded me of Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos, who was obsessed with this film, which turns out to him taking somebody to the hospital when he starts spitting the mace.
Which ironically, I moved my head. There's The Sopranos right behind me right there. So there they are right there with Ralph.
Yeah, it's an iconic film because it kind of has really, really cool scenes like the walking through the wheat field. That's one of the
That's the third bullet point. Every time I see a wheat field, I put my hand out like that and I tell Katie, I go, I'm Gladiator, just my hand by the wheat. And she goes, why? And I go, because in the movie you just see his hand by the wheat. That means he's the gladiator.
Yeah. It's a enjoyable film, but I think like Joaquin Phoenix steals the show for it in his performance. But I did enjoy the action. Like I said, the score is top notch.
Real quick before we move on, is there a movie off the top of your head you think Russell Crowe is really, really good in? Confidential, maybe?
The Insider. He's very good. The film he did before this was really good. I really liked him in American Gangster.
Oh yeah.
I don't like. I think Russell Crowe is a good actor. There's nothing.
Just not this performance. Maybe.
I just think this performance got was kind of over.
You're right.
Overdone. I think even Crowe came out and said that he believes that this film, Ridley Scott should have got the Oscar instead of him, which I can see. But he was in A Beautiful Mind, and I hated that film. But I thought he played the role fine. I don't think it wasn't him. It was just the film was just too long. But I mean, I support some of the stuff he does. I just didn't think like this was like his best stuff. I really thought The Insider was probably his best role. I really liked the film he did with Jake Gyllenhaal. What's it called? He's like the Private Eye. I forget the name of the film.
Oh, the one not with Gyllenhaal, the one with Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, there you go. I'm sorry.
Yes, that movie's great. Nice Guys. That movie's awesome.
Nice Guys. Now he's doing Exorcist.
You got me excited for a minute. I was like, "What is the movie with Gyllenhaal? This is going to be amazing." And then I was like, "Oh no!" But again, though, Joaquin brings it in this movie, so obviously it was a good one for you to bring to the front.
Yeah. If you haven't seen this one, check this one out. It's been out there for a while, but it's an action film that you would enjoy and just love it for Joaquin Phoenix, including this next film, which I think is one of his best.
You see, I never had to do hard time like you, although I have on occasion got myself busted. You heard about that? You been in El Paso too? Anyways, I felt tough, you know. like I'd seen a thing or two, you know?
I don't know what happened. Something happened here.
Well, that was till a moment ago. 'Cause I
We're just
gotta
going to go
tell
here.
you, my hat's off to you now. Because I ain't never had to drink this yellow water you got here at Folsom.
2005's Walk the Line.
It's a good photo for it right here. This is me right here. This is how I feel.
If you're watching the video version, we had some technical difficulties, but it's all good. This is a film. Joaquin Phoenix was actually nominated for Best Actor. In the previous film, he was nominated, in Gladiator, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. This film was directed by James Mangold, who also directed Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. He did Logan, Ford versus Ferrari, the Wolverine, 310 to Yuma, and Copland. He did Heavy, as well as Girl Interrupted. This film, best known for his Joaquin's portrayal as Johnny Cash, also starred Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Goodwin, and Robert Patrick. The film had a budget of $28 million and a box office of $186 million, which surprisingly to me was kind of low. I thought this film made a lot more money. But Tone, let me know what you think about Walk the Line.
I mean, you know me. You know I love music. So this movie is one of what I would deem to be a great musical biography. If you remember back when I visited the show, before I was a part of the show, we talked about great musical movies and biographies, and I believe we covered this one for the exact reason why we brought it back tonight, for Joaquin Phoenix's amazing performance. And honestly, he really has no problem with having a great performance in any of the movies we're talking about. This one, as you stated, could be his best. It with all of his movies, it's hard for me, for any actor, to be like, this is the best. But for this particular film, I mean, when you're playing Johnny Cash, I mean, he's one of the greatest artists of all time. Me liking music, you're going to want to say, I've seen some really bad biographies. I think I talked about it, and I haven't on here. I mean, the new Bob Marley biography was awful. So, like, when you see something like this, and you're like, he really put himself out there to make this movie. This is the reason why I enjoy Joaquin Phoenix. You know, I enjoy him because, you know, he really went deep into this movie. I mean, he did extra research more than probably a lot of other people who do biographies when it comes to like literally laying down the role. Those are probably the main reasons why I enjoy this movie.
Yeah, so this film, for one, I am not, for people who know me, I'm not a huge fan of biopics. I'll watch them. It's just certain biopics. I don't know. Like I love Lincoln, but I won't rewatch it because I think it's cool to read about the person's history and see them like. But I think if somebody has such a long career or something, you can't just condense it into a 2-hour long movie, and keep it completely entertaining. And even though Lincoln's 3 hours long. But this is one of the few films that's biopic that I actually will rewatch, and it's not just because I love Johnny Cash. I'm not a big fan of country music, even though I wouldn't really consider Johnny Cash more country. I consider him more kind of like rock, early rock, contemporary rock country. I can see people who disagree with that, but I really, really like Johnny Cash, and I love the fact that Joaquin Phoenix actually sings in this film. I thought he did a very good job. I love his chemistry with Robert Patrick, his father. Me and my brother always crack up about when his father calls him a pill popping rock star. It's a line that we go back and forth with sometimes just to make fun of certain things. But I think it was nicely done. I think this is probably one of his best roles. I love the music from it. Folsom Prison, that we opened up the scene when he does that song. He smashes the water down and sings it. Does Cocaine Blues there. It has a real rich history for a guy who was always known as the Man in Black, who continued to change the landscape of music in different ways just by doing his own thing. And then, eventually we see him do Hurt by Nine Inch Nails, or kind of a cover of it, and it becomes more famous to the point where the original artist is saying it was better than his. He's just a really interesting character, a really interesting person that lived. He had a really, really, you know, tough battle with drugs. He had his own personal problems, but somebody that you kind of like. And like, I love the way Joaquin plays him in this film. Uh, he shows all his flaws and shows all his good things. It's just basically a troubled soul who basically gets his life back together at the end, thanks to June, the love of his life. I really like this film, Tone.
I mean, I find it very awesome and interesting when doing research for the show, and coming up with some of these things. Just the things that, like he was saying, he went up to James Mangold during filming and was told him to quote unquote say that thing, and Mangold would reply, "You're not Johnny Cash." And I guess this is what kind of made Phoenix feel not the weight of the world on his shoulders, playing such a huge icon. And then later, going and saying things like, he literally gave himself to the role and didn't even really talk to his family during filming because he was Johnny Cash. Just crazy juxtapositions during the filming of it is just cool to hear.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, this film gets like a little bit ragged on because people are like, "Oh, this film will never came out if Ray didn't happen." And now Ray, another good film with Jamie Foxx, who won Oscars for it. This film was actually in production before Ray was even considered. Uh, so I don't,
I don't know why
that's
people
just
say things
I don't
like
know,
that.
just to say it, but I thought this film was really, really done well. I think that Joaquin should have, had more consideration for an Oscar for this film. I think he kind of got robbed a little bit. I'm gonna look up and see who won that year, but you know, he his acting is just highlighted in this whole film. Like I loved everything about it. Philip Seymour Hoffman won for Capote. So okay, I mean he had a tough one, but he did a very, very good job for it. That was actually a really, really good Oscar leading role there. They had Philip Seymour Hoffman, Terrence Howard for Hustle and Flow, Heath Ledger for Brokeback Mountain, Joaquin Phoenix for Walk the Line, and David Strahan. Is that how you say his name, Tom?
Yeah.
Strahan.
Strahan.
David Strahan for Good Night and Good Luck, another good film. All pretty good film. So heavyweight. But I thought he should have got more consideration for it. But Philip Seymour Hoffman did do a great job as Capote.
He did.
But yeah, I love this film. It's probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, Joaquin Phoenix film. But not just because of the music too. It like you said, he was totally into character. He did it like kind of a method acting for this film, and it's beautifully done. A film that still holds up to this day.
Another great pick. I mean, musical biographies, as far as they go, it's a top 5. It could even be a top 3. I mean, if we have time. I know you personally would put The Doors ahead of this one, but that might be a different conversation for a different day.
Oh man,
Quasimodo predicted all this.
I could have bet money you were going to go to there when.
Hold on a second. I think I got footage of us after the show here. Hold on.
Poor Perry Farrell, man.
I know, man. Sad.
I watched that. I was like, Jesus Christ. He just showed, if you were watching, listen to us, Tony just showed the Perry Farrell, Dave Navarro scuffle, which wasn't really a scuffle, just Dave Navarro playing a solo and Perry Farrell.
What?
Yeah, Perry, like he was like, "What the hell's going on?" And I watched the whole like leading up to that thing.
Yeah, I did too.
And there was like nothing he did. It was just Perry Farrell like banging his head yes, and then just went after Dave Navarro. I don't know.
Just real quick, because we were talking about real quick, is I guess if you watched it, the bass player then put him in a headlock and gave him a couple quick punches to the stomach. Like,
yeah.
I need the audio of the backstage for the 30 minutes where I guess Perry was just screaming, just what that sounded like. But that being said, back to Joaquin, great pick, man. Great pick.
Yeah. That's very fair. Just threw me off. But let's go to our next one, my friend.
You ready to go home? Or do you have a home? Your brother wanted me to let you out. It's up to me. I'll let you stay here another couple of days or a week, maybe a month.
What do you want me to do? Thank him?
Disgusting. You're uncontrollable, you know? Give him a bat. That'll wrap you one.
2007's We Own the Night. Joaquin played the role of Bobby Green. It was directed by James Gray, who did The Yards, The Immigrant, The Lost City of Z, and Two Lovers. The film stars Mark Wahlberg, Eva Mendes, Danny Hawk, Robert Duvall, Alex Viadolf, and Mani Mashonovov. That's very hard to say. The film had a budget of $21 million and a box office of $55 million. Now, Tone, you picked this film. Tell me why you picked it.
There isn't a movie that doesn't have to do with mobsters, drugs, anything along those lines, all mixed together that I'm not totally involved with. And We Own the Night, I enjoy the aspect of there's a mob connection in the movie, but it's not the Italian mob, which I was used to. It's, I think it's Russian.
Mhm.
And it's I like the performances. We talked about The Judge earlier with Robert Duvall. I love Robert Duvall, and Robert Duvall does a really, really, really good job in this movie. But Joaquin plays, of course, the bad brother of him and Wahlberg. And The Yards is a pretty good movie too by James Gray with Joaquin Phoenix. I like this movie too because the script to me is a little bit more developed, and the camera work is really, really, I like a lot. I just really like you've brought up movies like Street Kings. We've talked about those type of movies. This gives me those vibes, and Joaquin again, I think is at his top of his game. But I like the night. There's a couple really good musical nightclub scenes too, because he's running the nightclub for the Russians. Just I enjoy these movies for that reason.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't really consider Bobby a bad brother. I just think he's like a person just want to do his own thing. He has a family that his dad's a chief and his brother's a cop, and his brother's kind of a kiss ass in Mark Wahlberg. And the dad, of course, took the brother because he followed the family, line, and Bobby's kind of the outsider, the black sheep of the family. He doesn't, and then I don't want to spoil the film, but you gotta watch it. But he does a great job. Even Mendes does a pretty good role of as his girlfriend. And then Danny Hawk did actually a really good role as one of his best friends from the club. Uh, it's an interesting film. To be honest with you, I think Duvall and Joaquin's chemistry is really good in terms of him being that son that can't stand his dad.
Mm.
And then reading that prior to starting up the film, starting filming when they were like kind of practicing and whatnot, rehearsing, and then about to shoot, he would start hurling insults at Robert Duvall to get the character, and Robert Duvall got so pissed that they had to restrain him, which cracks me up. But it's just good chemistry there. One of my favorite parts is when he's talking to Mark Wahlberg and they're arguing, and he's like talking about his girlfriend. He's like, "Oh yeah, picture my girlfriend while you're with your wife." And it's just like it pisses him off, And like I said, the chemistry between Duvall and Phoenix, Christopher Walken was actually considered for the role.
Oh wow.
Of Duvall, and he had to drop out, but I can't see him being like, "Sons, stop fighting." No, but Duvall does a good job in here. To me, the film gets a little cheesy when he becomes a cop.
The movie there's this movie with Bryan Cranston called The Interpreter. He's like a drug, there's like middle level, not Goodfellas, not even The Town, a little lower than that. But like, as far as like, again, back to Gladiator, if you just nitpick these performances out of this movie, it is again, because this is a follow-up to his Walk the Line performance, and you could see from those earlier performances he's becoming more mature, it seems like, in just him overall, even though he was doing mature performances before this.
Yeah, it's kind of like and this is a film that I don't remember getting a lot of publicity either.
Not really.
I remember like seeing trailers for it, but nothing that like pushed it. It's a hidden gem.
Yeah, I didn't see this in the movie theaters. But again, it could play well with that Pride and Glory movie we talked about with Edward Norton and Colin Farrell. Something somewhere between cop and gangster, and well, Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, it's actually the same thing. I didn't see this when it came out. I actually saw this film maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So, because I saw it like on a streaming network, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me check this out, and I watched it. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. I believe it's on Prime, if not mistaken, for free. So it's one of those films that's out there. It's a timepiece, but it's a decent film to check out, a nice little gem. And I do like Joaquin's character, and again, his chemistry with Duvall is really, really good. And you kind of see a transformation of his character become the good guy. But yeah, check it out. Good pick, Tom.
Awesome.
All right, let's go into your next one, man.
I was really excited about that. And then I was thinking about the other things I've been feeling, and I caught myself feeling proud of that, proud of having my own feelings about the world, like the times I was worried about you, and things that hurt me, things I want. And then I had this terrible thought. Like, are these feelings even real? Or are they just programming?
2013's Her. Joaquin plays the role of Theodore. The film was directed by Spike Jonze, who people mostly known for music videos. He's done Fatboy Slim's Weapon of Choice, the Notorious B.I.G.'s Sky's the Limit, Weezer's Island in the Sun, The Sweater Song, Buddy Holly, Dinosaur Jr.'s Feel the Pain, Beastie Boys' Sabotage, The Breeders' Cannonball and Divine Hammer. He's also doing another film called Being John Malkovich, and I wonder who stars in that one. But he's mostly known for music videos. He's done a lot more. I just named a few of them. But this was a nice little, change of pace for him. The film stars Amy Adams, Scarlett Johansson, and Rooney Mara, along with Phoenix in it. It had a box office of 48 million and a budget of 23 million. Tone, I know you picked this film. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I rewatched it. This is probably my second favorite Phoenix performance. And the subject matter is weird because it's based in a futuristic society, and he falls in love with his basically his AI, which is kind of funny because AI is really big now. This is 11 years ago, and now AI is huge. And it's a kind of different take on him finding, and it's basically him having his own issues as terms of relationships and connections. I think he plays the vulnerable loser really, really well, and the misguided guy. The only thing that I did not like about this film is Scarlett Johansson's voice kind of annoyed me a little bit because she's like has that like grovelly like at the end, and I know she's supposed to be the AI, and she actually replaced the original actress for it. But it didn't hinder it enough to where I hated it. It was just a weird film, and I thought Joaquin really showed his acting chops as the weird loser in here, and you kind of felt bad for him about what he was going through. And I kind of feel for like the things he goes through in this film, and why he falls in love with his AI. It gives an explanation, and it's something. The crazy thing is in this film, like it's strange to talk about with us, like as people in the real world. How can you fall in love with it? But in the film setting, it's not so strange because people are doing it in the film like for comfort, not maybe in love, but they're in like comfort as companionship, and it's more acceptable in their universe, which I thought was a good way that Jones did it. And it's just something different, and I really like the way Phoenix played his role in this film, Tom.
I like the weirdness to it, as you stated. I'm a huge Being John Malkovich fan. For some unknown reason, I remember I found a used copy at Blockbuster Video on DVD. I think I still got that copy around here somewhere, but I like the weirdness. I like the color schemes. I like, even if I back this up here again, if you're watching online and you see his eyes are like blue, but it's red and it's white, like there's something artsy really about the movie. But as you stated, there's also something weird going on. And when I watch any performance, we've went through Michael Keaton, we've went through a lot of actors on here, and we've went through now Joaquin. I think of all of his performances when I watch this one, and I get excited because it's like, well, can this guy, well, what else can he do, or what will he do? And to be frankly honest with you, you're saying to yourself, oh man, I mean, he's only 6 years old, 49, he's not even 50 yet. So sometimes actors have their greatest roles still ahead of him, and this one is one that could indicate that he's still got a lot of great stuff coming. It's just very odd in the category that it was the only Best Picture nominee to not have any of the actors be listed, which I thought would be very odd. I thought his performance should have been nominated, but then again, right now I don't have that list in front of me of all the other actors, and generally, like you did earlier, that's what I like to do, to say, oh, I can see why he didn't get picked. But that being said, just an all-around great performance. I could see what you're saying about Scarlett Johansson. That's par for the course. It's but overall performance by him, really, really, really good job.
Yeah, that year, I looked it up while you were talking. That was the year that Dallas Buyers Club came out, American Hustle came out, Nebraska, The Wolf of Wall Street, 12 Years a Slave came out. So those are some pretty big, heavy hitters. Although I would say I believe Joaquin's performance is better than Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club.
That could be like that could be an argument territory. No, we're not going to argue.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying that. But Joaquin probably would be going. Was Jared a best supporting actor?
He's best supporting actor, yeah. But Joaquin will be in a leading role, and he's going against Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale and Bruce Dern, DiCaprio, and Chiwetel Ejiofor.
I love Nebraska and I love Bruce Dern, but you could have put him in there instead of Bruce Dern, because Bruce Dern, that seemed to be something like, oh, it's Bruce Dern, he's a really great actor, let's throw him a bone here. I'm not saying that that's what this would have been with Joaquin, but also too, the Academy sometimes stupid. It's like what I was saying earlier on Hookup on Music. Like, Rolling Stones top 500, this means it's true. Like, that's, I grew up in a split house where, like, I like Academy Award winning movies, but then my dad would be like, just because it's Academy Award doesn't mean it's a good fucking movie. And I'd be like, maybe you're right. So, and we love a lot of those type of movies too. So I'm like all over the place, but yeah. Nepo dad.
He could be, Sam, but remember, he has one of the greatest roles in Diggstown. Remember, a hustler.
The Burbs.
Yeah, the Burbs. He also reminds you of like an evil Ted Turner.
Oh, he does. You come across that.
But in terms of this film, you hit it right on the nose with the colors. The subject matter again is out there, but I don't know. I just really enjoyed this film. Just because, and it's crazy. When I went through the notes too for this, Chris Cooper filmed scenes for this movie, and they were left on the cutting room floor.
Oh, poor Chris. I love Chris Cooper too.
Yeah, but they actually gave him a thank you at the end. So that's why he's thanked.
Whoa, thank you.
Yeah. But it's like it still holds up. It's 11 years old. The technology and use for it, I thought, was very well done. I like the score for it. It just shows like how people think AI was going to become, and what it could become. And we're kind of seeing that now with the deep fakes and the personal assistants, and now you have the robots that have AI that they're developing. Yes, they are developing actual robots. So it might be like more towards that movie with Will Smith, I, Robot, anything. But it's really, really
kill that man, that robot.
Yeah. Throwing people out windows. But a thing that stuck out to me is Amy Adams, who to me is a beautiful actress. She's playing in this film. Like, she doesn't have a lot of makeup. And I think that's kind of cool. Like, she's decided to go natural look, and she's a beautiful woman. I love her role in here as kind of like the weird friend that he kind of falls in love with eventually, that owns the company he works at. And the video games they play are pretty hilarious too.
Did you hear about her new movie coming out really quick?
No, I have not.
It's called Night Bitch, where she starts to turn into a dog in like the middle of the night. I don't know if it's somewhere between horror or it sounds right up our alley. That was my point of saying all of this. Somewhere between Grindhouse and Amy Adams, who's a great actress, doing something like that, which sounds interesting to me. But her performance in this movie, as you stated, is just really, 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 really good. And it's again a great indication. And really quick before we move on here in a second, we've talked about Nicolas Cage, we've talked about Spike Jonze, and we've talked about Chris Cooper. When's the last time you've seen Adaptation?
Ooh, I haven't seen that movie in a while.
Honestly, I hadn't seen it in such a long time. I think it was like last year I rewatched it. Man, that was actually a really good movie too, and I didn't realize it was as good. And I actually owned the DVD at a point. I think I got rid of it. I think maybe when it first came out, it was too over my head. But I loved Nicolas Cage in that movie, and Chris Cooper. Man, I've loved Chris Cooper since I've seen him in anything from American Beauty to October Sky. But again, her's a good movie.
One of my favorite Chris Cooper films is actually Breach.
That's a great movie too.
About Robert Hansen.
He's really good in that movie.
Yeah, Chris Cooper actually won the Oscar for adaptation.
Yeah, he sure did.
But yeah, one of my favorite roles is his Breach. I really like that star. I thought he did a very good job in that. But yeah, adaptation. I haven't heard that. I was looking at films and for Jones, and I was looking at his music stuff more. I totally forgot adaptation as one of his films. Good bring back, man. That's
well, it's like you said Chris Cooper, and then I immediately for some reason thought of him with long hair and in adaptation. And I'm like, wait a minute, is that Spike Jonze? And then I looked it up here, and then I'm like, wait, we talked about Nicolas Cage. Let's just throw them all together and sell it. We did it. Look at that.
Sam says that he was great in a Muppets film. He was.
He was.
And I love this comment. What if Will Smith fell in love with iRobot? I think he has. He's a lover of the Roomba. Of the Roomba, just like Beef Loaf.
Would he slap it?
Maybe when it doesn't work. But I love her. It's a good film.
Awesome.
The next one, my man, is a film I had not heard of. So I want to hear your details on this one.
We first saw them in the emergency ward. Maybe they're sticking around to get what they want.
Well, what do they want?
For you to come with them?
Yeah. Where to? Because they're waving to me, you know?
To the big park in the sky. It could be calling from the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I don't want to go to the park in the sky.
Callahan, don't obsess over the gymnasts.
Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far by Foot. 2018, he played the role of John Callahan. The film was directed by Gus Van Sant, starring Jonah Hill, Rooney Mara, Jack Black, Tony Greenhand, and Beth Ditto. The film had a box office of $4 million with no budget reported. Tone, tell us about this film.
I picked this film for the reason I main picked this film is this could be a Joaquin movie you can really go back and watch that you may not even heard of. Not that you probably have heard of Clay Pigeons, but this one is a newer one. And what it is again, you mentioned earlier biographies. This is a different type of, it's a biography, but it's about somebody who you might not even ever have heard of, which are my favorite type of biographies because I don't know anything about them. It's not like it's like Elvis and we know Elvis and I know the story. This is about John Callahan, who was a cartoonist who sadly became a quadriplegic at the age of 21 when his friend, they were drinking and his friend crashed the car. In the movie, Jack Black plays the friend. And Jack Black's performance in this movie, honestly, I could start to like tear up because honestly, you're not going to ever think that Jack Black can do a performance like this. Because to think about being in the room and having to like, this is the man who did this to you, but like he's also a friend and you also have to go through these things. And Jonah Hill, also an amazing performance in this movie as again, somebody who is helping him as he goes along in this life that he didn't anticipate until, well, he was a drinker, and then he even becomes more of an alcoholic as he becomes a quadriplegic. But what it is again, it's a story that he still did cartoons, very dark humor. A lot of these movies we talked about tonight were black humor. Back to Gus Van Sant. I love that when actors, this is probably my favorite thing about movies in general, is when actors work with directors multiple times. That tells me that they really have a good partnership. That really tells me that they are willing to really go to work together and come up with performances like this. And honestly, I didn't hear about this movie. I didn't know about this movie. All I knew about it was, I think it was in a Rolling Stone I had, and it came out that it was coming out, and I saw Jack Black, Jonah Hill, Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, at the very worst, this is going to be just tolerable, and at the very best, it's going to be something that actually left me thinking for a very long time. Now, really quick before we go on, around the same time, which I wanted to pick this movie too, but I did not. It came out the same exact year. It's called You Were Never Really Here. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Yump, where he plays pretty much a vigilante. Pretty much it's like Death Wish, but it's like Joaquin playing Death Wish. And I was going to pick that one too, but I picked this one instead. But both movies during this time period are showing Joaquin at high levels, but you don't know these movies because he doesn't really care that they're not being produced. He just cares that he's a good actor in them. And I think that's why I love him the most, is that at the end of the day, he doesn't really care if his movie makes $1 million, trillions of dollars. He cares that he's putting out a performance that you, me, people who love movies care about. And this is one of those, because honestly, when you're playing a role like this one, and you're playing a role where honestly it's total juxtaposition to the dominance he's trying to be in Gladiator, even though he's a wimp, it's really awesome, man. It's a really cool thing. And honestly, I do suggest to check this one out. Last time we did the old format, we talked about Michael Keaton, and we talked about a movie called Clean and Sober. This would be the newest version of a Clean and Sober that I can think about, because he plays an alcoholic. And a lot of it is like looking back and saying to yourself, like, could things have been different? Or are you accepting and you're just a great cartoonist for who you are currently today? So really good movie.
Yeah, man. Great description of it. I haven't seen this film because I never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that, and honestly, when it came out, I have it on a thumb drive around here. A buddy put it on there. I watched it, but it's not something I've watched a lot, and I want to, but it's not on streaming. So I don't know if it is. I haven't even looked, but it's not something that pops up a lot. So it's something you got to search out. And I think sometimes you like a lot of movies, and I've been a king since I have heard back in the year 2000 about something called IMDb. This is one of those IMDb movies when you're going through the IMDb one day and you're like, this movie, what's this? And then the title, and then you're like, Gus Van Sant? And then you say, wait a minute here, this has got to be something. And then it ends up actually being really, really good.
Yeah, and you can watch it actually for free on Prime right now. So if you have Amazon Prime, I'm looking at it right now, which is cool. So I will definitely check this one out. I did a little bit of research. From everything I was seeing or reading, is Jonah Hill is amazing in this film to play off Joaquin Phoenix, to the point where Jonah Hill considers this to be his best performance of his career. I saw people saying he should have been nominated for an Oscar for his film. I did find it interesting that Gus Van Sant originally planned to make this film in the 90s with Robin Williams as John Callahan. Williams, of course, had his own troubles with alcoholism and drug abuse, and was a comedic actor, which, more and more than that, he was a phenomenal actor in general. But, unfortunately, he did not make this film as he had passed, and they gave a special thanks to him at the end of the film, I guess. But Joaquin Phoenix himself has had his own struggles with alcoholism. He checked himself into rehab in 2005. I really am interested to see how he portrays himself in here. And just looking at like Jonah Hill kind of looks like a hippie the whole time.
He does. He does. And Joaquin at this period of time, there's another movie. I don't know if you've seen. It's him and John C. Reilly, the Sisters Brothers.
Mhm.
You ever see that movie? I mean, that's not
Yeah.
a bad movie. That's not a bad movie either, for what it is. And that's got a lot of other actors in it too. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal's in that one, and Riz Ahmed and Rutger Hauer even. But like, I love working and seeing Joaquin in different things. So I'm curious to hear your reviews of this one if you check it out. When you check it out.
Yeah, I definitely will check it. If you want to check this one, it's actually, like it says, it's free on Amazon Prime. Really, really interesting career for the gentleman John Callahan. But there is one thing I wanted to mention to you, Tone, since you're the music guy. Apparently, in the movie, there's a woman in one of the AA meetings who's really, really nicely dressed, and it's Kim Gordon.
Sure is, from Sonic Youth.
Yeah, and she was inspiration for another band called Nirvana.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's honestly, if that's not enough, worth checking it out right there, man. That's it's just, again, actors doing things like Jonah Hill playing a role, as you just stated, that should have been Academy Award nominating. Check it out. Should have been nominated for War Dogs, but we'll talk about that at a later date.
Yeah. And with that, let's get to our final film, my friend.
I don't need you to tell me lies. I know it seems strange. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know why everyone is so rude. I don't know why you are. I don't want anything from you. Maybe a little bit of warmth. Maybe a hug, Dad. How about just a little bit of fucking decency? What is it with you people? You say that stuff to my mother?
She's crazy. You think this is funny?
Dad, it's me.
2019's Joker. Joaquin Phoenix plays the role of Arthur Fleck. This film he won an Oscar for. The film was directed by Todd Phillips, who directed War Dogs, the Hangover series, Due Date, Old School, and Road Trip. The film stars Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, Francis Conroy, Brett Cullen, Shea Willingham, and Bill Camp. It had a box office of $1 billion on a very low budget of $55 million, which is surprisingly, it's a big differential there, and it was a real big moneymaker. Tone, I know we talked about this leading up to here in terms of, Joker with the sequel coming out. We could not end the night without this film. Tell me of your take on his portrayal of Joker.
I feel probably a lot like our main man here in the comments a little bit. When I first saw this movie, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. When I rewatched it the second time, I thought it was pretty good. I think he's really good in the movie again. But again, this isn't like 1989's Joker. This isn't even Heath Ledger's Joker. This is like a movie that's his. And it's also different too, in a way. When coming out, it got compared to like movies like Taxi Driver, and I love Taxi Driver. So like I could see those vibes in this movie. I really like De Niro in this movie. I like his cheesy, campy performance. But again, I've heard just a lot of negatives too. And I am not somebody who I take it all in, and I could see some of that too. But as far as Joaquin goes, I like what he did. I like what Todd Phillips did. I approached a coworker, and as I passed him, I said, "What do you think of the Joker? You gonna see the new one?" He said, "Man, I love the first one," but he goes, "I don't know about the second one." And he goes, "I have a feeling it's going to be one of those, it's a dream in his head, the whole entire thing," which is the stupid easy out when it's like you're sitting in the asylum the whole time and it's been playing in your head. I hope that's not what it is. In this movie, though, I think he does a really, really good job. He would be, I would think, to be, off the top of my head here, he'd probably be my third or fourth best Joker. I mean, I would put obviously Jack Nicholson. I would put the original Joker in there ahead of him. Romero or Cesar Romero, I would definitely put ahead. I would put the Joker that was in the Cell, probably, maybe even in the Batman. I don't know, but I thought he did a good job in the movie.
I think you described it perfectly. To me, this is not a comic book film. It's has a comic book background in terms of Joker and gives us an origin story. The Joker has no origin story. I mean, I think they've recently gone and finally named who he was. Recently, I think within the past 20 years, but he was always a man of mystery, and this kind of gives you that background of what he is. This takes a lot of liberties with the Batman series, doing things differently, especially with Thomas Wayne. It makes Thomas Wayne to an asshole, which I thought was really, really interesting to see. The reason this film I think hit more with me is because he's a person that has some mental illness. He's trying to get help, which he does, go see a counselor, and the government basically shuts him down for funding.
Mhm.
And as a person who worked in that field for almost 10 years, I know how that is. And that's why a lot of shit happens in the streets, because a lot of funding and for mental health is not given, especially in the Illinois area. It's, I believe Cook County Jail is the biggest psychiatric ward in the state, which is ridiculous. But I mean, I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just saying how it relates
No,
to
no,
the film.
I am 100% with you in all this. This is what I see on a daily basis. And this movie is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why I relate to it so well. I thought when I first saw it, I thought, I really liked a different portrayal of him. I thought he was up there with Jack's portrayal of the Joker.
Me too. I
Uh,
walked out of that theater feeling that way too.
and the second time I saw it, it went down a little bit. It's interesting that you say the fact that, your friend said it could be a dream. And I think that's what I'm worried about the new film
Yeah.
because Phillips did such a great job of when he goes to do the comedy show and they don't show what he says, but it shows everybody cheering for him, and then you see him do the thing with the girl and falling in love with her, and then everybody's like loving him, and you find out that's all in his head.
I know.
And it was very well done to the point where okay, that makes sense because he's mentally ill. But now with this musical coming out, is this all in his head to where he's just gonna be, like you said, he's gonna be in a prison or Arkham Asylum? I hope
No,
not,
no, no.
but it could be all in Harley Quinn's head. I don't know. But he kinda he opened up Pandora's box, let out the the mystique of that. I wish he would have kept it to where you kept thinking, did that really happen? And it didn't, to kind of keep it going.
Yeah.
I thought his Joaquin deserved the Oscar for this. I thought he did an excellent job portraying Arthur Fleck. Uh, I Him and Robert De Niro's chemistry in this film was good. I also heard they didn't get along very well in this film, and
Well,
it's because
yeah,
Joaquin was giving him shit the whole time, which I thought was hilarious.
that's hilarious.
But Joaquin is the sixth person to receive an Oscar nomination for portraying a comic book character after Jackie Cooper for Skippy, Al Pacino for Dick Tracy, Paul Newman for Road Perdition, William Hurt for History of Violence, Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight. Of the six, only Ledger and Phoenix have won Oscars. And I thought he deserved an Oscar for this. He did a very, very good job. I thought the role was tailor made for him. It's a different telling of the Batman, of the villain of the Batman. And I kind of like that aspect of it, which is why I'm willing to go see the sequel. I just worry about it.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, again, as you stated, the first one wasn't a musical, and you're switching up like this format to tell everyone they're gonna be sitting and watching a sequel that usually doesn't spell for like success. So like we're gonna see how this is gonna turn out.
Yeah. And man, I'm just worried about what's gonna happen going forward. What I did find amusing in my own personal way was I did say this was not a typical comic book film, but Martin Scorsese was actually considered and was thinking about directing this film with Leonardo DiCaprio as Arthur Fleck. I don't know if that would have worked as well. But the fact that Martin Scorsese was considering directing this and all the shit he says about comic book films makes me
Yeah.
laugh. That part, I'm sorry, I just made him and Quentin Tarantino's takes. They're two of the greatest directors. I'm not gonna say they're not,
No, you
but their
just can't
takes on
sometimes
what is
keep
cinema.
we'll just
I,
sometimes
yeah,
keep your
don't.
opinions to yourself.
To me, it's
You never want to alienate anybody if you want to make, I don't want to say make money or make fans, but you just don't want to alienate people.
Yeah, don't gatekeep because cinema is what you want to. I mean, as long good cinema is thinking outside the box differently. That's what they've done for many years. I mean, you can say, hey, if you want to criticize Martin Scorsese, hell, most of your films are gangster films, and most of them are. They're done different ways. And you could say Quentin Tarantino, you have a foot fetish, which he does, but you're known for dialogue. Like I'm just saying, like you can be criticized the same way, but saying that just because it's a comic book film, it's not cinema. It is cinema. It's on the screen. It's a different art form, and I'm not saying they're all Oscar-winning roles, and Oscar-winning films, but it is cinema. I just don't like that. That's just me on my rant soapbox. I'll get off it. But
No,
it made me laugh that he was considered that he was considering directing this.
Oh, very interesting.
But this is a good film. Has it gone down in quality in terms of me rewatchability? Yeah, to me it has, but I can understand the hype of it. I love the fact that Guillermo del Toro is a huge fan of this film, one of my favorite directors, and I can see why because he likes a lot of dark movies. But that is our breakdown of Joaquin Phoenix. A little fun facts about Joaquin. He appeared in 55 films. He's won 71 awards, including one Oscar for Joker. He was nominated for Best Actor for The Master and Walk the Line, and Best Supporting Actor for Gladiator. His films have made over $3 billion worldwide, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. Great pick to go over this tone. Any final thoughts about Joaquin?
A couple final thoughts. There's a couple movies, sadly, we weren't able to cross, but I'm just going to bring them up really quick because I think they're awesome. I really, really enjoy his performance in the Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. He is really, really weird in that movie too, and that movie is really, really, really different. He does a really, really good job in that one. I also really like him a lot in another Paul Thomas Anderson movie, Inherent Vice, where he plays pretty much an out there detective. But both of those movies are, again, in addition to all of the other great things he's done. One more deep cut that I'm just going to bring up really quick here is from 2007. I stumbled across this movie. It is called Reservation Road. It is Joaquin Phoenix and Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is driving home one day with his son in the car, and as he's driving home, it's at the beginning of the movie, spoiler alert, Joaquin Phoenix is with his son and his like family, and they're at a gas station, and they just like went to a basketball game, and Ruffalo hits his son and kills him and drives away. And of course, Joaquin, amazing performance when that happens to your child. But then what ends up happening is the prosecutor ends up being Mark Ruffalo in the case. Like he drives away, and then like Mark Ruffalo has to like pretend like he's not the person the whole time that did this. And Joaquin is like trying to find out who it is. And you can imagine the boiling tension throughout this whole entire movie with those great actors. It's another one that if you have a chance, it is a tough watch, obviously, by the material in which I said, but the performances are just, and Jennifer Connelly is amazing, and Mira Sorvino is amazing, which is hilarious. You brought up Quentin Tarantino. He was really obsessed with her for a little while. But a really, really, really good movie. And again, we've talked about all night here, just the Joaquin and just the different stuff that he has done. But very appreciative to do this with you, my man, because he's a great actor, and breaking down his movies was a great time.
Yes, good actor. He gets his flowers a lot, but with the new film coming out, we decided to do a little deep dive into him. Great films. The Mark Ruffalo Reservation Road film is very, very good. It's another film. I picked a limited number of films for this because I'm like, oh man, like more. I want to do films that we knew, but
Yeah,
like you gave us out like some good, really, really good ones with the picks you had. But yeah, he's done so. Just looking at his filmography now, he's done some films that like we didn't talk about Sisters Brothers he's done that we didn't
No.
talk about.
Well, last week I brought up, or 2 weeks ago, I brought up Parenthood. I mean, if I really wanted to, that would have been one of the first ones I picked. But I'm like, I just talked about that 2 weeks ago. But like again, he's good in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like Return to Paradise, Buffalo Soldiers. There's so many films you could talk about. He was even Hotel Rwanda.
I know.
He's done a lot of good stuff. But hopefully we touched upon some of the films you guys have seen. And if we left anything out, please let us know in the comments or tweeting at us. That's our Joaquin Phoenix breakdown. Tone, do you want to tell people what is going to be coming soon?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Mr. Anderson. Okay, what we got coming up next Friday is we are returning to a film breakdown. We are going to have all of the goodies, the pre-production notes. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about all the awesome theories that my man Yump is going to dig up for us. And we are going to put it all together for you with the production of The Matrix, which is coming across. I think you said we're going to be celebrating. Say that again.
It's its 25th year being released. It was released in March, but they're doing a re-release, I believe, within the next month to celebrate 25 years of its release.
Now, really quick before we move on, I will go more in detail next week. But in the movie theater, while watching this movie, a pair of couples got into a brawl with a garbage can going flying into the aisle. Cannot wait to share that story more next week while watching this movie. So, folks, it's going to be a good time, man. I can't wait.
Yes. I just want to hear that story now.
I know. That's why I got to wait next week.
Good cliffhanger, Tone. Join us next week. We are back at 8 o'clock, 8:30-ish every Friday now. Baseball season is over. We might be talking about history the White Sox set with their losses on Friday, but we are back every Friday. Tone has the hookup on music now so back-to-back double duty for Tony. So he's doing
that's it. And see me tonight. I am on fire. I'm feeling great. I looked at that and I was talking to Katie. It's like I'm in the bullpen warming up, even though it's my show, but I feel like so good just talking on a Friday night and just doing this with you and sharing music and sharing this and that. So yes, because back when we were a long time ago, I always had this TGIF idea in my head. And then I thought to myself, I can just do that because I do the other show. So like, it's going to be fun. So thank you.
Yes, sir. But with that, Tony, let's just go straight into your pick of the week, and then we can close it out and put a bow on this, as they say, for the show.
Do it.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Suck up that gas. Oh my God. He is a bitch that he'll never ever be good.
Little shop of horrors. We're going on a little shop of horrors because again, we're getting close to Halloween. And yes, this isn't your typical scary movie, but when you're talking about Little Shop of Horrors, you are definitely talking about, well, a 1982 off-Broadway musical of the same name. And the film itself was directed by Frank Oz, but the soundtrack to this movie is just ridiculous. Honestly, what I love the most about this movie is one of my favorite singers of all time does the voice of the plant and Audrey, and that is Levi Stubbs, the lead singer of the Four Tops, the Motown group band. And when I heard that about 15-20 years ago, it made me love this movie even more. Just a really great soundtrack as far as like a campy soundtrack. You're looking for some things that make you smile. The clip I played you there, Steve Martin does a great job as a crazy dentist who rides on his motorcycle, and in that he gives way too much laughing gas. He even takes the laughing gas himself. Just really, really good songs. And again, just to kind of start to wet our whistle for what's coming around the corner in the Halloween season. I decided to dip into the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack.
Yeah, it makes me laugh. That cracked me up because of because of Steve Martin.
Oh yeah.
Also the part where he's a sadistic dentist and he gets Bill Murray, who wants to be dominated and hurt, come out, and he like surprises him. That so cracks me up. Sam Reeves says we play a slot machine all the time, but we never seen a movie. Definitely check out the film, Sam. I'm pretty sure you will like it a lot. I believe they're doing a remake, if I'm not mistaken.
I've heard that for a while, yeah.
I have to look and see if they are. It's still in production, so you don't know. But yeah, it's a this film is a remake of the 60 version, but I love this. So I look Rick Moranis. The soundtrack is great. It has great characters. The only person I don't like in this film is Jim Belushi, and you know why. But everybody else I love. I love the animatronics for this film. It's got a great story. It's a musical that I actually like. It's a film that I want to show my son when he gets a little older to see how he likes it, because I think it's cool. Yeah, it's a classic, Tone. Great soundtrack pick.
Thank you very much.
So that is our show. Be sure to check us out at Sadistic Penguin Studios. We were releasing vlogs. Tone has 31 vlogs in 31 days to go along with my Halloween series of 31 movies in 31 days in October. So October is going to be tons of content. It's getting drafty in here. Just did a show drafting how movie and TV presidents, which I thought was a great show. I had to watch that one on the rewatch because I fell asleep too early, but it was good with Zombie Jackie and Not Larry on that show. He will be having a new show coming up soon. He's been popping in ideas left and right. Tone, you got the Hook Up on Music every Friday now,
yes,
which is great to have it back to back.
And I have a list of people who will be joining me in sure due time at that 7 p.m. slot talking about music. Have already reached out to a couple people. I like the live format, and I did like it when I was doing it on Wednesday. The problem is man, sometimes work gets really hectic, and on Wednesdays, but like what I like about Fridays is like once I clock out on Fridays, I don't have to think about work again until Monday. So like that's what's nice about our show now, this, and just a great revitalization, because now, well, I don't have to think about the White Sox losing anymore. So that's going to be amazing. And we can look forward to this on Fridays. So
no, it's just the Bulls.
Yeah, just the Bulls.
No, I love the fact I watched you earlier while I was getting ready for this show. Check out the Hook Up on Music. Tone does a great job there. Grateful Ducks, check him out. Luke is doing a great breakdown every Saturday morning, whether it be live or sometimes recorded. Hopefully this week Luke talks about my 3-0 Illini, who are going against Nebraska. It's about to be 4-0, officially ranked number 24 Fighting Illini. So Luke can't talk smack about them, saying they're not ranked. They are ranked. Hopefully they get a little love this episode. But Luke is doing a great job for Grateful Ducks. We got a lot of stuff coming for the Penguin stuff. Be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to come back and watch our episodes if you guys want to see any other Getting Drafted here, Hook Up on Music, or the At The Show podcast on YouTube. You want to see
and you know what will happen if you don't?
I love that. You could have.
This is his face. This Perry Farrell. We're always going to keep this on there because his face was like. And me and Katie just recently watched. It was like it was a Lollapalooza 2. It was like a 2-episode documentary, and he just seemed like the nicest guy. And Katie's like, he's a singer. And now I show her this video, and he's like, so
I'm not mad.
Yes.
Yeah, great stuff, Tone. So everyone
out there,
I said, don't call me bro. Everyone have a great night, and we'll be back next week with our breakdown of The Matrix.
Thanks for listening to the At The Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?